Nora plays a love song on the piano of a dive bar. Brennan smokes cigarettes in the bar's shabby restroom before meeting the owner, who interviews him about his music. Brennan confirms that he writes the songs he sings. The bar owner has his own assumptions about this aspiring musician, but he gives Brennan a half-hour 6 p.m. slot anyway, with no pay, but all the free booze he wants from the bar. The last song on Brennan's set is called Nora. That was Brennan's life in the city of Seattle. 7 years later, Brennan looks more mature, as he has ditched the struggling artist persona. He is in a restaurant in Nashville, sitting alone at his table. He is visiting here for a work conference for his company, called Reunited, with several other of his mundane colleagues. An attractive girl walks over to his table and makes a comment about how he hasn't touched his drink. His drink is a glass of orange juice, but his looks suggest that he needs something stronger. However, he doesn't drink as much anymore. The girl guesses that he must be an unpredictable drunk, and shakes his hand when he introduces himself, which wasn't really needed since she already saw his name on the name tag stamped over his ironed, buttoned-up shirt. She finds him familiar, and they joke about how he looks like Prince. She suggests that they should ditch the place, and he is ready to leave with her until she informs him of the different rates she has for different sexual activities. He loses interest, even though she reduces her charges because she is attracted to him, as soon as he realizes that she is a hooker. But she prefers to view herself as an entrepreneur, and observes how unhappy he looks. Brennan wakes up in his hotel room and checks out, while a guy plays guitar in the lobby as background music. He walks toward him, deep in thought, when his colleague Steve joins him, going on and on about Nashville and its residents, and how unrealistic, depressing, and impractical they are. According to Steve, he and Brennan are superior to this guitarist, as they work for a company like Reunited, which gives them stability and takes them on work trips like this. Brennan doesn't agree with this ideology, and isn't as passionate about the company as Steve. That's why he leaves them in the lobby, shooting down his offer to hang out together before their flight back home. Nora has had a huge fight with her boyfriend David, and breaks up with him, even though they are on vacation together. He tries to remind her that they came to celebrate for her, and if she continues with her antics, he will go back to the hotel and leave for good. Nora can't care less, and flips him off in the street before she walks away, giving away the ring on her finger to a homeless man, because she is done with this relationship. Brennan is standing in the crowd listening to a country band busking on the streets when Nora spots him. They are both pleasantly surprised to see each other after so long, and she hugs him immediately. They never expected to see each other in Nashville. She notices the change in his appearance, the short hair and clean-shaven face, which insinuates that he left the musical path he chose some years ago. She dodges the question about her getaway, and takes him out for drinks. At the bar, they recall the last time they saw each other. They were at Nora's nephew's baptism. Brennan was leaving Seattle for Colorado, but he missed his flight, so ended up spending the day with Nora and her family, even though they both knew their relationship was over at this point. But they still pretended to act like it wasn't. Nora admits that she has stalked him on Facebook at times, and guesses he never got married or had kids, because she would have seen their pictures on his profile. Nora still resides in Seattle, and remembers when Brennan used to live there too. They passively confront each other, as Nora never called Brennan all this time, and he never showed up at her sister's wedding. When Nora asks if he has anywhere to be, Brennan lies and doesn't bring up his flight, so they take shots together. They reminisce about their favorite memory of their relationship. For Nora, it is the time when Brennan lied about not getting restaurant reservations, because he had planned an intimate and romantic surprise for her. For Brennan, it is the first time he ever kissed Nora, out on the street on an impulse. Brennan admits that none of his relationships could measure up to what the two of them had. They continue catching up over drinks while a band plays country fiddle music in the background. Brennan goes to the restroom to get his bearings back, while Nora ignores calls on her phone from David. Brennan returns, and he is drunk by now, but so is Nora. They dance for a while, after which they sit down together again, trying to make up for lost time. Nora shows him the pictures of her nephew Jadon on her phone. She accidentally slides to a picture of David, and Brennan doesn't say a word, so she skips over it and shows him a picture of her house. Brennan suggests that they should take some pictures to remember this time, so they hand his phone to a stranger, and Nora hops on Brennan's lap while posing for pictures. They get lost in each other's eyes for a moment before she goes back to her seat, fixing his hair, which she messed up while she was playing around with it. Nora wants Brennan to sing for her, but he refuses, because he doesn't do that anymore. She takes him by his hand to the dance floor and starts to dance, while he keeps looking at her like she's the only girl in the room. He takes her face in his hands and kisses her out of nowhere, but she quickly backs out and walks away, making Brennan feel guilty about his lack of control. Brennan finds himself yet again in the restroom of a bar, trying to sort his emotions out. Nora looks over at her phone screen with a text notification from David, who won't try anymore, and is flying back home without her. She gulps down the rest of her drink and bangs on the door of the restroom Brennan is in. As soon as he opens the door, she shoves him in, pushes him to the wall, and starts making out with him passionately. He turns her around and sits her on top of the sink, as they drop their pants down, gasping for air in between their kisses. Before things escalate, the sink breaks and water sprouts up everywhere, drenching them both. Brennan struggles to stop the water while Nora laughs hysterically. They both sneak out of the bar in soaking wet clothes, trying to hold in their laughter. A distant banjo rhythm plays in the silence of the night as they head to Nora's motel room. She opens the door carefully, trying to make sure that David has really left, while Brennan is snuggling up to her neck. She invites him in when she finds the room empty. Brennan points out how messy her room is, as if she has no maid service, while Nora hides away the note David left behind for her. She pours him a drink, and Brennan, now more happily drunk than ever, starts to sing a love song he wrote for her 7 years ago while getting ice from the ice machine. When he comes back to the room, Nora is already asleep in her bed. He tucks her in and plants a kiss on her forehead. He smiles as he hears her snoring lightly. The next morning, he throws up on the side of the street outside Nora's motel, because of all the drinks he had the night before. He heads back to his hotel in a cab. He sees this city, which was previously taunting him and reminding him of a phase he left behind in his life, differently now. It seems as if that same city is giving him everything from the time of his life when he was truly satisfied with the simple pleasures. Nashville is reuniting him with his long-lost passions and desires, which he buried somewhere long ago. He gets his luggage from the hotel as Nora wakes up in her room, watching several missed calls from David on her phone. They both look at their tired faces in the mirror from the perspectives of their lovers, thinking about how they must have looked last night. Brennan returns to Nora's room with his suitcase and sees Nora's phone constantly buzzing, as David is calling her repeatedly. He looks around to find out where she is, and keeps the phone aside when she doesn't show up. Nora steps out of the shower, draped in a towel, and grabs another beer, trying to convince Brennan not to judge her for her excessive drinking. They are walking together when she tells him that she will leave Nashville on Monday. Brennan has decided to stay for the weekend too, because he wants to go sightseeing, even though his work conference is over. Since he has checked out of his hotel, Nora offers him to crash in her room for the weekend. She makes him shut his eyes and picture every moment of his life where he has had the most amount of feelings. These are memories of when he went to the ocean for the first time, lost his virginity, his first regret, and his first heartbreak. When he opens his eyes, she asks him what color he saw, as it would be the one that he associates with his dreams and memories. His answer is blue, and Nora translates this into loyalty, truth, wisdom, openness, heaven, and tranquility. He does the same to her, and when she closes her eyes, he lists every core memory of her, along with those she shared with him, and asks her to visualize her future as well. Her smile drops down at this point, and she urges them to keep walking. When he psychoanalyzes her back and switches positions, Nora struggles to be as clear and wise as she was a few moments ago. They are at a vintage cafe for breakfast, where a woman is singing and playing a song on her folk guitar. They are joking around with each other when a friendly waitress comes over to their table, and they chatter and goof around with her too, before ordering more drinks. While Brennan wants to go back to Nora's motel room, Nora wants to write a poem with him for Jessie, the nice waitress they just met. Brennan loves every moment he's spending with Nora, so he straightforwardly lays out some options for her. He's willing to move back to Seattle to be with her, and he can fly to Colorado for work. He really believes that they can make it work, and this would be better than Nora moving to Colorado and leaving her family behind. Nora still wants to be in the haze of their whirlwind comeback romance, so she wishfully suggests that they could both stay in Nashville, where he would be able to sing, and she could play the piano again. After the cafe, Nora deletes David's texts from her phone, while Brennan talks to a stranger and gives him some money. Clutching Nora's hand, he leads her inside an old warehouse. He brings her to a dim and romantically lit up space with a magnificent, wooden classic piano. He urges her to play, but she insists that she's not the same girl she was 7 years ago. Regardless of her being embarrassed, he pleads for her to play for him. She gives into his puppy face and sits down to play the piano after so many years. She plays a tune called Hindenburg that she wrote herself, but doesn't remember when. She starts to play and sing, and Brennan keeps looking at her with an unwavering longing gaze. Unable to suppress their emotions anymore, they give in to the desire they've been feeling for each other all along. They spend that evening at a bar where a country rock band is performing. They are talking and having a good time while enjoying the music, when Nora steps out for a smoke. A man named Roy offers to light her cigarette up for her, and compliments her style of smoking. Nora introduces herself and chats with him as she finishes smoking her cigarette, while Brennan waits inside for her at a table. Nora comes back inside, and they're talking about kids when Brennan brings up what they'd name a child if they had one. Nora avoids this question by taking a big sip of her drink. Brennan is aware of her evasive maneuvers, but lets it all slide because of how much he likes her. Nora questions what he hates about her. Brennan is at a loss for words, but Nora keeps reminding him of all the bad things about her that Brennan has or could hate. Brennan gets a little tense because of the way she's acting. She finally reveals her former long-term relationship with David. Surprisingly, Brennan already knew about it, because he used Facebook to keep an eye on her too. Nora wonders how Brennan feels about this, and Brennan admits that he thought of what it would be like to be with her for so long. Nora confides in him about how her relationship with David went downhill. David lied to her and took behind her back, which is something Brennan promises he'd never do. Nora finds this claim unrealistic, as she believes that everyone does messed up stuff. What matters is the intention behind their actions. They are walking back home, and Brennan tries to reach for her hand, but she moves it away from him. They stop by a girl playing acoustic guitar and singing a song about regrets. Nora checks her phone at this moment, while Brennan stands to her side, trying not to look and invade her privacy. Nora now wants to go back to the bar, and Brennan finds this strange, as she was the one who suggested leaving in the first place. However, she doesn't want him to be mad, so he plays along. Nora is having a drink at the bar when Brennan picks up a paper napkin and starts to write something on it. He hasn't written anything in a really long time. Nora is flattered to see that she's inspiring him, and he might even start singing again soon. Brennan goes to the restroom, and when he comes back, he sees Nora having drinks and flirting with Roy at the bar. He sits at a distance from them with a melancholic look on his face, while Nora keeps glancing at him from time to time. He guzzles down his drink and rushes to the bar, only to see that Roy and Nora are no longer there. He turns around and watches Roy come out of the restrooms, followed by Nora, who steps out a few minutes later. Brennan storms out of the bar in disbelief, with a broken heart. Nora follows him, but he's very angry at her for always pushing him away when he gets too close to her. Nora is hurt because she thinks he perceives her as someone unreliable and untrustworthy, but Brennan screams at her, confessing that the thing he truly hates about her is that he loves her. This sounds far-fetched to Nora, because he hasn't known her for 7 years, but Brennan knows that if this ends, Nora will easily go back to her old life with random guys, and it would be painful for him to wonder if she thinks of him or not. Nora is bawling her eyes out at this point, and they walk away from each other. Brennan comes back to their motel room later than her, as she's already sleeping. He cuddles up to her and falls asleep too. They wake up at noon the next day, and Brennan gets Nora some flowers while she is talking to someone on the phone. He hands her the bouquet and a card that he saw her playing around with earlier. Nora reads the card and smiles, and Brennan takes her hand in his. They go to a hot dog cart to get food for Brennan. While Nora still feels very queasy, Nora doesn't remember last night completely, but she recalls them fighting and brings it up. Brennan clarifies that it wasn't a fight, but more of an argument. Nora will leave tomorrow morning, so it's their last night together in Nashville, and they plan not to waste it. Nora takes him to an empty stage and climbs on it, singing and dancing for him, so that he'll feel encouraged to join her. That day, Brennan asks Nora to move in with him, but Nora tries to change the subject with jokes. They visit a graveyard, playing a game where they guess the lives of the people whose graves they're standing by. Nora insinuates that running into Brennan 2 days ago in Nashville was like encountering a ghost from her past. They keep drinking and talking until they find themselves in a calm and quiet church. Nora rests her head on Brennan's shoulder as he tries not to doze off. As he dwindles between a state of sleeping and consciousness, Nora caresses his face lovingly, taking in every little detail of his face that she adores. When Brennan wakes up, Nora is sitting down and praying under Jesus' statue. She admits to him that she was self-deprecating about being 30 years old and not being able to figure out her life choices. Brennan points out that 30 is still a young age, but Nora doesn't agree, because she is viewing it from the perspective of how much time she has left to have kids. She is scared of the future, and if she wants to have 3 kids she has to start now, unlike men, who can decide to knock up some young girl anytime they want. She is scared of going back home and breaking the image everyone holds of her marrying David. She fears the routine she'll fall back into. Brennan suggests that their meeting after all these years is fate, and discusses what will happen to them. Nora plans for them to simply go back to their usual lives, but Brennan can't go through the painful period of trying to get over her again, because he barely made it out last time. Nora reminds him that he was the one who ended things, but Brennan understands that he was forced to, due to what they turned into. Nora doesn't want to have all these intense discussions right now, and wants to live in the moment and be free for the last night she's here. Brennan is disappointed in her for contradicting what her heart wants every time. Nora doesn't take this accusation very well, and points out how he walked away from everything he loved, his girlfriend, and his passion for singing, all because of the fear that it would be too difficult. She screams at him for being weak, and a coward, and running away from his passions. He has to learn to stay consistent and not give up, even when it gets rough, if he really wants to achieve his dream of being a singer. She calms herself down and doesn't want to fight with him, so she requests to just enjoy the leftover time they have together. They go to another bar, where Brennan is recording their last moments together on his phone. When the bar patrons judge them for kissing in public, they deliberately put on a PDA-filled show to annoy the people even more, and Brennan films it as a memory. They hand over the camera to each other, taking turns as they ask each other imaginative questions. Nora has received such treatment after quite some time. They take some more shots, and Brennan records Nora dancing to an upbeat sound, after which he goes and kisses her on the dance floor. Brennan has written more lyrics on the paper napkin, and is very optimistic about the song he's writing. Nora is trying to sneak a peek when she sees David entering the bar, looking around for her. She sends Brennan to the store and makes an excuse to go out for a smoke. Brennan runs into Steve at the store, who has elongated his stay, as Nashville has grown on him, possibly due to the hooker he's obsessed with, ironically the one who made a pass at Brennan a few days ago. Brennan quits his job there and then. Nora is arguing with David, who never left the city, and was only keeping his distance from her to give her some space to cool off and get back to normal, like she usually does. Brennan and David look at each other, and David grabs Nora's arm to coerce her into going back home with him. Brennan jumps in to rescue her and smacks David's head on the bar. He checks up on Nora with concern, when David knocks him out with a blow to his face. Later on, in the motel room, Nora blurts out that she had an abortion. It was 5 years ago, and she wishes it could have been him, because then they would have kept the baby and raised it together. She reciprocates his affection toward her, and tells him that she loves him back. She lights up a cigarette and imprints her skin and then Brennan's, as their own twisted way of remembering this trip and every moment of it. Brennan has decided to stay back in Nashville, and not go to Colorado anymore, because it feels right to him. The question is if Nora will ever come back. Nora deflects yet again, and asks him if he'll ever sing the song for her. He brings the napkin out of his pocket and starts to sing the song. No one has ever touched Nora's heart like Brennan just did. Brennan wakes up in his bed alone, with cups half filled with alcohol and a bruise on his cheek, as reminders of last night. He gently slides his hand against the pillow beside him, trying to capture any Nora's essence that she left behind. Now he is back to his destiny, as he sings in bars with a beanie on his head, looking like the artist that he feels like on the inside. He stands on stage, plays his guitar, and sings the song he wrote for Nora that brought him back to this life. It looks like history has repeated itself, as he finds himself in the same position as he did 7 years ago, singing in a bar about Nora, with an aching, longing, but loving heart.